Un Boeing 757 a pieno carico pesa quasi 100 tonnellate. È lungo 46 metri, largo quasi 40 ed è alto da terra oltre 13 metri. Ma allora, dove è finito? Non certo in questo buco di 3 metri. Al piano terra le colonne portanti sono rimaste in piedi. Le macerie sono quasi tutte riversate all'esterno. Molte delle finestre hanno addirittura i vetri ancora intatti. Questa fotografia è stata scattata da un tenente dei Marines, Jason Ingersoll, pochi minuti dopo l'impatto dell'aereo e mezz'ora prima che la facciata crollasse, nell'immagine che tutti ricordiamo. L'aereo, quindi, non è finito sotto le macerie, come molti hanno creduto di fronte a questa immagine che ha fatto il giro del mondo. Ma allora, dov'è finito? Poco dopo l'impatto, il prato appare intonso. Non si vede il minimo segno di una strisciata, né tantomeno quello di una buca. E non c'è in giro un solo rottame di una certa consistenza che possa essersi staccato dall'aereo al momento dell'impatto. Non un'ala, un motore, un sedile, un pezzo di fusoliera, una valigia, un timone di coda. Niente, assolutamente niente di quello che siamo abituati a vedere normalmente quando cade un aereo di quelle dimensioni.
From my close-up inspection, there's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere near the Pentagon. The only site is the actual site of the building that's crashed in, and as I said, the only pieces left that you can see are small enough that you could pick up in your hand. There are no large tail sections, wing sections, a fuselage, nothing like that anywhere around.
Intorno al Pentagono sono disseminate centinaia di telecamere di sicurezza che coprono ogni minimo angolo della zona, di giorno e di notte. È semplicemente il posto più protetto del mondo. Ci sono inoltre le telecamere del vicino svincolo autostradale, che inquadrano ininterrottamente lo spazio aereo antistante il Pentagono stesso. Qualunque cosa lo abbia colpito, deve per forza essere passata di qua. Anche il vicino Hotel Sheraton ha alcune delle sue telecamere puntate proprio in direzione dell'edificio colpito. Ma i nastri di tutte queste telecamere sono stati immediatamente confiscati dall'FBI e nessuno ha mai potuto vederli. Perché per le Torri Gemelle ci viene mostrato fino alla nausea l'impatto del secondo aereo, mentre per il Pentagono ci viene mostrato l'unico filmato in cui l'aereo non si vede affatto? C'è chi dice che le pareti del Pentagono erano durissime, talmente dure che l'aereo si sarebbe disintegrato contro la facciata. Ma anche quando gli aerei sbattono contro una montagna, che è molto più dura di qualunque edificio al mondo, i resti si vedono e come. I motori, poi, sono 2 proiettili di acciaio di 4 tonnellate l'uno, talmente compatti che non si disintegrano nemmeno cadendo da 10.000 metri di altezza. La versione ufficiale, illustrata da questo filmato, vuole invece che l'aereo sia scomparso per intero all'interno dell'edificio. Si dimentica però completamente dei motori, che di colpo svaniscono nel nulla, mentre il Boeing diventa improvvisamente piccolo come un vagone della metropolitana. Ma le dimensioni reali di un 757 sono queste, e questi sono i suoi motori. Non certo questi. Questo è comunque l'unico foro di entrata che si vede sulla facciata del Pentagono. Questo, invece, è il foro praticato da un missile cruise nel 1999 sulla facciata della casa del leader jugoslavo Milosevic. In ogni caso, resta molto difficile credere che l'aereo sia entrato tutto all'interno dell'edificio, quando la maggioranza delle finestre conserva addirittura i vetri intatti e i grossi rulli di cavo elettrico che erano presenti sul prato già prima dell'impatto non sono nemmeno caduti. Se invece l'aereo si è disintegrato contro la facciata, che cosa può aver causato questo foro d'uscita di dimensioni simili a quello di entrata, che sta addirittura all'interno del terzo anello del Pentagono? Fra il foro di entrata e quello di uscita ci sono di mezzo circa un centinaio di colonne di cemento armato. Che cosa può avere la forza di travolgerle tutte restando intatto e conservando fino alla fine la forza sufficiente per fare questo danno? Forse è stato qualcosa che noi non dovevamo vedere? Le Torri Gemelle avevano una struttura portante in acciaio, progettata apposta per reggere, con ampi margini, all'impatto di un aereo commerciale di grosse dimensioni. Lo conferma Frank De Martini, manager del progetto di costruzione delle torri, in un'intervista del gennaio 2001.
The building was designed to have a fully loaded 707 crash into it. That was the largest plane at the time. I believe that the building probably could sustain multiple impacts of jetliners because this structure is like the mosquito netting on your screen door, this intense grid, and the jet plane is just a pencil puncturing that screen netting. It really does nothing to the screen netting.
E infatti, dopo essere state colpite, le torri hanno ondeggiato e scricchiolato per qualche minuto, prima di fermarsi con il carico redistribuito sulla struttura restante, come previsto. Ma poi, inspiegabilmente, quando gli incendi si erano già consumati da un pezzo, sono improvvisamente crollate, una dopo l'altra, trasformandosi in una nuvola di polvere finissima, che ha ricoperto come neve tutta la punta sud di Manhattan. La tesi ufficiale vuole che il calore degli incendi abbia indebolito le strutture di supporto, fino a farle crollare su se stesse. Ma l'acciaio fonde a 1500 gradi e deve essere esposto a una temperatura di almeno 800 gradi per lunghissime ore, prima di iniziare anche solo ad ammorbidirsi. A Madrid un edificio simile è bruciato per 2 giorni interi, a temperature ben più alte di quelle delle Torri Gemelle, senza che l'acciaio mostrasse in seguito il minimo segno di indebolimento. Non si spiegherebbe altrimenti perché sia necessaria la fiamma ossidrica per saldarlo, se bastasse poi del semplice cherosene per scioglierlo.
This is Eric Lipton for the New York Times. Fuji Bank had offices on the 78th to the 82nd floor of the South Tower. Many of the executives there had watched the North Tower be hit by an airplane and had left, but then upon reaching the exit had been told by a security guard that it was safe and they could return. Stanley Priminath was one of those, and he was at his desk looking out towards the Statue of Liberty on the telephone with a colleague from Chicago. When he saw something coming at him, it was a United Airlines plane. He could see the gray body of the plane. He could read the lettering on the plane. And as it approached, he realized that it wasn't just a low-flying plane, but it was actually another hijacked plane, and it was headed right at him. He screamed, got under his desk, and just as he arrived there, the plane entered the building, the nose hitting the 81st floor where he was, only several hundred feet away. His floor was destroyed, and many people who were on it were killed instantly, but somehow Stanley had survived. Screaming at the top of his lungs, "Help, help, I'm trapped, don't leave me here." Someone who was passing down the emergency stairwell nearby, named Brian Clark from Eurobrokers, who worked on the 84th floor, heard him. And Brian separated from his group with a flashlight, and the two start to make way towards each other, until finally they reach a point where they're separated by a partially destroyed wall. Brian and Stanley were able to meet, and the two of them continued down the stairwell, and were some of the only employees from those two companies to survive.
La scala A era quindi rimasta praticabile, ed è proprio attraverso quella che molte altre persone, rimaste intrappolate ai piani superiori, sono riuscite a salvarsi dopo Clark e Priminath. Ma se delle persone hanno potuto transitare vive a quel livello, vicino al centro della struttura, vuol dire che la temperatura lì non ha mai raggiunto gli 800 gradi necessari anche solo ad ammorbidire i poderosi piloni d'acciaio delle torri. Ambedue gli incendi in realtà si sono consumati molto rapidamente, come è testimoniato anche dal fumo degli incendi, che era già diventato nero molto prima che le torri crollassero. Quasi tutte le vittime, infatti, sono morte soffocate dal fumo o per i traumi riportati. Tutti quelli che erano invece riusciti a sopravvivere al di sopra degli incendi sono poi morti nel successivo crollo delle torri, mentre erano in attesa di soccorso. Fra loro c'era anche Frank De Martini, il manager del piano di costruzione delle torri intervistato prima. Ma allora, perché sono crollate?
Everybody talks about what the new trade center is going to look like.
For 7 years, 37-year-old Philip Morelli was a construction worker inside the trade center. The Queens native says he loved his job at the Twin Towers. At 8:30, he says he was headed to level B4 in Tower 1, 4 stories below ground.
I go downstairs, the foreman tells me to go to remove the containers. As I'm walking by the main freight car of the building, in the corridor, that's when I got blown. I mean, the impact of the explosion, of whatever happened, it threw me to the floor, and that's when everything started happening. I was racing, I was going towards the bathroom, all of a sudden, I opened the door, I didn't know it was a bathroom, and all of a sudden a big impact happened again, and all the ceiling tile was falling down, the light fixtures were falling, swinging out of the ceiling. I mean, I know of people that got killed in the basement, I know of people that got broken legs in the basement, people that got reconstructive surgery because the walls hit them in the face.
There were 2 or 3 similar huge explosions, and the building literally shook. You literally shook at the base of this building.
Just prior to that huge explosion that we all heard and felt,
we heard a very loud blast, an explosion. We looked up, and the building literally began to collapse.
and to me it sounded like an explosion. Then the building, the rolling sound sounded like the building collapsed.
I got an eyewitness who said there was an explosion on floor 7-8. 7-8. We've just had another explosion.
Warren Street because of the secondary explosion. We've got numerous people covered with dust from the secondary explosion.
And we got another explosion on the tower, 1013. Tower 2 has had a major explosion and what appears to be a complete collapse surrounding the entire area. Who's involved in the secondary explosion at Tower 1?
Moments ago, I spoke to the chief of safety for the New York City Fire Department. He received word of the possibility of a secondary device, that is another bomb going off, but he said that there was another explosion which took place, and then an hour after the first hit here, there was another explosion that took place. He thinks that there were actually devices that were planted in the building. We are continuing to hear explosions here downtown.
at least 2 blocks, and we started running. Floor by floor, it started popping out.
It was if they had detonated.
Yeah,
as if they were planned to take down a building. Boom, 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 boom.
All the way down.
As we were moving towards the building, we saw the top begin to blow out in a plume of smoke, and we heard the noise associated with an implosion.
And you can see that it almost looks like one of those planned implosions.
It's reminiscent of those pictures we've all seen too much on television before, when a building was deliberately destroyed by well-placed dynamite to knock it down.
Managed implosion of the building. If you've seen many of the managed demolitions where they implode a building and they cause it essentially to fall vertically, because they cause all of the vertical columns to fail simultaneously. That's exactly what it looked like, and that's what happened.
It was live on television. I mean, just literally millions of people.
Helen Mariani ha perso il marito nel volo United che si è schiantato nella Torre Sud. Ha denunciato il presidente Bush, il vice Cheney e le alte cariche dello Stato per alto tradimento.
I wish they all were here. Neil spent, my husband, 4 years in the Air Force. We had a memorial in front of my home. 3 of my daughters and 1 of my sons, my only son. You can see that flag will not be flown until justice for me and the rest of the 3,000 will be served in the courts in New York. These are the questions that I want to ask Mr. Bush. It is still my personal belief that you intentionally allowed September 11, 2001 to happen. You gathered public support for a war on terrorism. I find distasteful for you to use our disaster of death and destruction for your political gain. Our American dreams of freedom have been shattered for the future generations to come. Thank you.
Barry Zellman ha perso il fratello nel crollo della Torre Sud.
I just embrace people that understand that 4 airplanes, an hour and a half between the first impact and the second impact, with 0 military response in the United States, it didn't happen that way. It couldn't have happened that way. You're talking about the most intelligent agencies that we have in the face of Europe, state-of-the-art agencies, and there was 0 military response. And, you know, I'm a fair person. I listened to all sides of the argument, and I did research upon research, and no one could give me the answer. But it's very transparent because our own president did not want to investigate this tragedy. And I'm standing before you today for one reason. The only thing that I could give my brother is the truth. That's it. I didn't get paid a cent. You know, the money was out there to shut people up. It's a strange dynamic money because there's two sides to 9/11 families. There are ones that were paid and the ones that weren't. But the money was there for one reason. It's to keep people, pay them off and keep them quiet. And I thank people like you that are listening. Thank you very much.
Kristen Breitmeyer, Lori Von Auken, Patti Casazza e Mindy Kleinberg sono conosciute come le vedove del New Jersey. Dal giorno degli attentati hanno unito le loro forze e combattono incessantemente perché la verità venga a galla.
I knew approximately where his office was because he said that he was looking directly across at Tower 1, and I just had a feeling inside. And then when I saw the buildings subsequently collapse, I just said, my God, he is gone. And I fell to the floor and...
What
what happened after those planes took off? And I think you feel this way too. Do you want to talk about that?
You know, I have a lot of problems with the Pentagon. I don't understand how a plane could hit our Defense Department, which is the Pentagon, an hour after the first plane hit the first tower. I don't understand how that is possible. I'm a reasonable person, but when you look at the fact that we spend $500 billion on national defense, and you're telling me that a plane is able to hit our Pentagon, our Defense Department, an hour after the first tower was hit, there are procedures and protocols in place in this nation that are to be followed when transponders are disconnected, and they were not followed on September 11th.
I thought democracy just worked, and I learned that it doesn't go like that. That if you want if you want to live in this great country of ours with our fabulous democracy and our Constitution and, you know, our different rights, freedom of speech and all the things that we take for granted, you have to fight for those things.
I had faith in all of my leaders on September 10th that they were doing the best jobs that they could to protect the lives of my loved ones, my friends, my countrymen.
I didn't understand that I needed to look at the bigger picture. I've turned into a very disenchanted, fully awake, no longer naive person. I want to meet with the NSA, CIA, and the FBI together in one room. I'm sitting there with a FBI agent who's very high up, not the director, but nonetheless very high up in the FBI. And I said to him, I don't understand. You have the Phoenix memo, you have Zacarias Moussaoui in custody. You had actually been to the flight school that you picked up Zacarias Moussaoui at 4 or 5 times before to investigate other individuals, one of those individuals who happened to be a pilot for Osama bin Laden himself. And you had the Phoenix memo alerting you to the interest that these Middle Eastern men had in flight schools. How is it that you didn't find them prior to 9/11? So this agent says to me, do you know how many flight schools there are in America? Thousands. Do you know how many ground instructors there are? Thousands. And you expected us to go to every single flight school to find these handful of men? And I'm like, well, honestly, yes. So then I'm like, okay, fine, I'll give you that. I'll give you that you couldn't have hit every flight school. I'm like, okay, fine. Well, how is it that if there's thousands of flight schools and you could never have found them, how is it that you went to Embry-Riddle Flight School in Daytona Beach, Florida, hours after the attacks? If there's thousands of flight schools, how did you just happen to go to that one exact perfect school that some of the hijackers went to? How'd you know to go to that school? And he just looked at me and goes, we got lucky.
American Airlines Flight 11 departed Boston Logan Airport at 7:45 a.m. The last routine communication between ground control and the plane occurred at 8:13 a.m. Between 8:13 and 8:20, Flight 11 became unresponsive to ground control. Additionally, radar indicated that the plane had deviated from its assigned path of flight. Soon thereafter, transponder contact was lost. 2 Flight 11 airline attendants had separately called American Airlines reporting a hijacking, the presence of weapons, and the inflictions of injuries on passengers and crew. At this point, it would seem abundantly clear that Flight 11 was an emergency. And yet, according to NORAD's official timeline, NORAD was not contacted until 20 minutes later at 8:40 a.m. Tragically, the fighter jets were not deployed until 8:52 a.m., a full 32 minutes after loss of contact with Flight 11. Why was there a delay in the FAA notifying NORAD? Why was there a delay in NORAD scrambling fighter jets? How is this possible when NEADS was fully staffed with planes at the ready monitoring our airspace? Flight 175, 77, and 93 all had the same repeat pattern of delays in notification and delays in scrambling fighter jets. Delays that are unimaginable considering a plane had, by this time, already hit the World Trade Center. Is it luck that aberrant stock trades were not monitored? Is it luck when 15 of visas are awarded based on incomplete forms? Is it luck when emergency FAA and NORAD protocols are not followed? Is it luck when a national emergency is not reported to top government officials on a timely basis? To me, luck is something that happens once. When you have this repeated pattern of broken protocols, broken laws, broken communication, one cannot still call it luck.
As a Midwesterner, I might say to you, I've been impressed time and again with the pride you've expressed in New York City, and I admire that greatly, and I think that may your help, your leadership, and your cooperation with this committee.
Shortly. If you want to be disruptive, you will be removed from this room.
Remember this, your government funded and trained Al-Qaeda. Repeat it again, your government funded and trained Al-Qaeda. I'll say it one more time.